morning, y'all. We are back with another edition of DNVR Rams live from the Toyota Lounge. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. It's good to be back, man. I've got Dre here. We've got the dynamic duo back in action. Football is here. We're a couple of weeks away from real football, not like shorts and shells, like real 11-on-11 padded football.
It's so here.
It feels so good. Yesterday was the second scrimmage, so it feels like we're getting to a point where we're having some, I guess, a better gauge, I guess would be the way to put it, of what this team has an opportunity to be this season. We're going to talk about all of that. I'm going to give out some breakout candidates. I had Dre put on his scouting hat. He dove into the opposing quarterbacks. We're going to rank CSU's opposing quarterbacks. Kind of an interesting slate this year. You face a couple of who I would say are probably elite quarterbacks, at least at the collegiate level. You also have a whole lot of randomness and a lot of unproven guys. So kind of yet another reason to believe that there's an opportunity for the Rams to make a little bit of noise here. The schedule's very favorable. They've got a lot of talent. We're going to get into all of that. I'm going to play some clips, going to play an interview from Jordan Ross and Vincent Brown, a couple of guys who have an opportunity to factor into the offense this season. Just first things first, though, got to do a little bit of pleasantries. It's been a while. How you doing, man?
You talked for 90 seconds straight there. You're in full.
I've been solo for a month.
Playoff mode.
Yeah.
Or football mode. Yeah. I can't believe it's here. I'm doing great. I'm so excited to do this. I was getting hyped looking through all these quarterbacks. Also, really talking myself into the Rams. This schedule feels like, especially in the Mountain West, everything's in front of them. And if you take care of business in the Mountain West, everything's in front of you, period.
Anything is possible this year.
Anything is possible season.
It's what's fun about having the expanded playoff is you at least have the possibility. The hope is there. We've given out a million reasons in recent weeks why there's, reason for optimism. Obviously, there's also reason for skepticism given CSU's recent history. At some point, they've got to go out and prove it before people buy in. I understand
Stakes
that.
are high.
But when you look at the talent on this team, and I think that's a good place to start, especially with the second scrimmage being yesterday and the way things went, this number one offense has a chance to be electric, and they have a chance to put up some points in a way that we haven't seen in a long time. Obviously, the talent is significant. I mean, when you've got guys like Torrey Horton, Armani Winfield, there's reason to be excited there. But to me, it was just seeing how efficiently they moved the ball yesterday. You can tell that everybody's in lockstep. You can tell that the chemistry is on point. The offensive line, they're giving him time. And Braden just looks really sure of himself. I mean, I had an opportunity to talk with him yesterday along with a couple of the other local media members up there. It was a great media day. You can check that out on our YouTube page. A full conversation with Torrey Horton, with Braden Fowler-Nicolosi, and what we heard from Jay Norvell yesterday. But one of the things we heard pretty consistently from Torrey, from Jay, from Braden himself is the game's just slowed down for him. It's one thing to go out and say that. It's one thing to say, hey, I've got to be smarter in these situations. I'm more proficient in the system. I'm seeing it differently. It's another to actually go out and do it. And I mean, it's a scrimmage, not necessarily every rep is fully live. There's some times where you're like trying to work on some stuff situationally, 2-minute drill, 4-minute drill.
Sure.
But first play of the scrimmage, it's supposed to be a run play. BFN checks to a go route to Torrey, just hits a 60-yard bomb to start things off. They get back on the field a couple minutes later. They're working on the 2-minute offensive situation. Hits Winfield on a slant, goes for like 15, then hits Torrey, across the middle, goes for another 15. And then he hits Torrey for a touchdown. It was just bam, 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 like score. And you just seeing the way that they were able to execute. Like we haven't seen a CSU offense play with this type of pace in a couple of years. And it feels like they finally are in a spot where like they can really turn it on, folks. And it's going to be interesting because I think there's going to be some versatility and we're going to talk about all that. But man, like it feels like they're going to score some points like a classic Big 12 team or something like that. Like Jay said, this is the biggest and most athletic team he's had as a head coach. You see it on the field.
So Winfield's the real deal, huh?
Oh, he moves like Rashard Higgins, but he has the muscle of Michael Gallup. There were a couple of plays yesterday. I mean, they got him the ball in space on a quick screen. He just makes one guy miss, puts his foot in the ground, and he's upfield all of a sudden. Like, he just moves differently than all these other guys. And when you factor in that he's pretty consistently going to be getting teams number 2 cornerbacks because you got Torrey Horton on the other side.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do with those guys. Like, it's so much speed and athleticism, and they've got a ton of experience. Like, you've got Donovan Ollie and you've got Dylan Goffney and some of these guys who have played plenty of football as well. Like, it just becomes a mismatch nightmare. And we haven't even talked about the backfield or the tight ends. And it feels like they've got great depth there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's why we got excited about that pickup and kind of felt like, look, on paper, Winfield potentially could even be an upgrade from some of the losses you had at the wide receiver
and
position.
now we've seen it. And yeah, it's like we had to see it play out, but they got lucky. I mean, it was unfortunate that you lose Justice Ross Simmons and Lewis Brown after investing a couple of years in them. Those guys were in position to make a leap and probably have a really good year. But if we're talking just pure ability, like raw ability, they definitely upgraded. And we've got some clips here from the scrimmage yesterday that I want to show you guys, give you guys an idea of kind of what this offense is looking like. This first clip, it's BFN throwing a touchdown to Torrey Horton here in the red zone. Really nice touch on the ball, drops in a bucket. Also had Armani wide open on the other side of the field, but I mean, that's a quick read. Love the touch, man. Just so smooth.
Yeah, and leaning on his back foot, no problem. Perfect placement. And Torrey just getting
being Torrey
open at, like it's nothing.
And that's one of those too, where I get questions, is that poor coverage? And it's like, it's probably not necessarily the best coverage, but also like they're not going to be facing receivers like Torrey and Armani that consistently throughout the season.
Especially Torrey.
Torrey.
Not many guys get that kind of separation, open, in a red zone drill. Yeah, tight space, exactly. So yeah, pretty impressive there. And then I can't wait to get to the line and running backs and tight ends and ask you questions about that, but you can go to the next clip if that's what you're ready for.
We got a clip here of a touchdown to Armani Winfield, a little slant, gets open, nice and smooth. I mean, look, these aren't like groundbreaking plays. This isn't like a Sports Center type highlight or anything like that, but the offense was moving the ball efficiently. Very few incompletions, very few instances in which somebody wasn't open and he was able to get the ball out of his hands. It just feels like they're very confident in what they're trying to do as a unit right now, and that makes sense. That comes with the experience. You've got a quarterback who's now a year wiser and got 11 games under his belt.
No, 100%. And I see what you mean with the strength and muscle build of a Michael Gallup. You can see it from that
His
clip.
calves, man. Like when you're out there in person, especially, the dude is just all muscle and he's fast. Like he's got a P4 build. Like, Norvell talked about it. He didn't think that they would necessarily be able to land a receiver of that caliber in the portal this cycle. And Armani kind of looked at the situation and he's like, well, Torrey's putting up big numbers. They've got a young quarterback in place that can sling the ball. Like, I think I have an opportunity here to really do my thing. And so I'm excited to see how it plays out. I'm excited to see how this entire offense plays out. We're going to get into some...
Yeah, it's really the system that's always gotten me excited. Now it feels like you have the personnel. You have personnel with experience in that system who's kind of built up that callus, and they're ready to go. I was just thinking on the drive here, I can't wait for this. The identity of this offense, just cross them to death and just pew, pew, hit them deep, then run it up the middle, then hit the tight ends, like everything that opens up from that, and having guys like Torrey, like Winfield, with those crossers and everything else, with BFN executing it, with your kind of notes you have on the offensive line here. I mean, gets me excited, Justin, to where I feel like everything, the stakes are really high because it's now or never time in a lot of ways, but everything feels very in front of them this season.
Well, kind of going off of what you said, one of the things that stood out to me that Norvell said yesterday was that the offense took a major step in the right direction last year, but it was still kind of a situation where when they were rolling, it had to do more with like how they were scheming guys open. And he wants the difference to be this year, like they're just going to go out and beat you because they're better than you. They're going to run the football. They're going to control the tempo. They're going to be able to play with different paces. Like that's the other thing. Last year it was kind of like either it's a 3-play 80-yard drive, you score in 90 seconds, or it's kind of like a 3 and out, or like you kind of stall. Like they're just going to be able to move the ball, I think, with a little bit more consistency. They're going to be able to dictate the tone of the matchup a little bit more. And a big part of that is having the size and the trenches, the offensive line, it looks like an NFL O-line. They're going to average about 6'5", 305 across the board.
Crazy.
And they've got 6 backs that I think realistically will probably get a touch at some point this season. So, like, I just think they've got the horses finally. Like, it's not going to be a situation where CSU beat you because they got kind of cute and they schemed up the perfect 3 plays and all of those broke for like 80-yard touchdowns. You want those big explosives. You want that element, but you also want to just, when you're up 7, be able to put your foot on the throat and run the ball, which obviously was not something that they were able to do a year ago.
100%. And that multiplicity, right? You're just way harder to game plan for. You're way harder to predict on first and second down when you have all those different weapons to go to, when you have a more established identity, a more established offensive line, everything. It's just going to have such a trickle-down effect, and that'll really help the defense. Just not playing from behind, It's what I want for all our football teams in Colorado.
It's been a while since we could say that. It's been a lot of bad football for a half decade. I mean, if I sat down and named all of the losses I've been in person for between CSU and the Broncos over the last 5-6 years, it gets real sad really quick. We're going to talk about all of this like throughout the next couple of weeks. I will say, just to give you guys an idea, like, this wasn't a true 11-on-11, best versus best scrimmage for 3 straight hours. It's, you get some 2-minute drill in there, some 4-minute drill. Really, after about 40 minutes, they kind of took the starting offense out. I think they had seen what they needed to see at that point, and they really let the 2s and 3s battle it out. But that's what's encouraging about the program, is that it feels like you have depth in a way that you just have not had in a couple of years due to, roster turnover and staff changes and some wonkiness with the portal and all that. But really feel good about the depth. We got a question here from Foco Rams in the Toyota chat. J-Mike, assuming 11 personnel, who are the starters in August? I mean, I think you go 3 receivers. Like, you're going to have Torrey. I think you're going to have Winfield as your 1-2 guy. Then, you probably put somebody like Goffney in the slot, or Ollie, depending on the situation. Running back, I think it'll be Justin Marshall. But again, it is going to be kind of a committee approach. They've got 5 guys that have experience with Kobe Johnson, Avery Morrow, Damian Henderson, Justin Marshall, and then Keegan Hollis is, coming off the ACL, former PWO out of Cherry Creek. He looks really good. He runs the ball well. And you got Jalen Dupree. Sorry, I'm naming a lot of names here, but the starters, you've got Winfield and Horton at receiver. I'll say we'll put Goffney in the slot. At tight end, I think it's going to be Vince Brown. We've talked a lot about Jackson Warren, but at least week 1, I think it's going to be Vince Brown, and we're going to talk about him in the breakout candidates, and we're going to play an interview with him and freshman receiver Jordan Ross. But nobody's had a better camp than him. Offensive line, you got Gardner at center. You move Drew Moss over to right guard. It'll be Aaron Karras at right tackle. At left guard, it's kind of a battle right now. I think it'll probably be Chandler Brown, maybe Tanner Morley, depending on how things kind of shake out there. And then you've got Savion Henderson, your starting left tackle back from last year. We're going to play an interview actually with Vince Brown and Jordan Ross here in just a second. So it's kind of a good way to transition that. A guy who's had a really nice camp. And then Jordan Ross obviously is one of the more intriguing freshmen on the roster, a guy that I think could play a factor this year. But Dre, we got to tell the people about Coors Light and choosing a chill mindset, because
always,
when you're as crazy and passionate about football as we are, it's kind of easy to not be in a chill mindset. It's easy to flip a coffee table or 2, or I don't know, man. Adazio ball really tested my patience as a human being.
The Olympics were a good starter, where it was like, wow, how am I this upset about this indoor volleyball matchup that just occurred, or why is this tennis game making me so, why is this rugby 7 game making me feel this way? So yeah, gotta choose a cool mindset, relax, maybe hammock it up. I became a hammock guy again this summer. Yes, thank God. And choose that cool mindset with a nice, refreshing Coors Light.
When the mountains turn blue, baby, it's as cold as the Rockies. It's cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smoother finish. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. We also want to shout out our homies at Game Time. Game Time has never made it easier to get tickets last minute. if you're a sports fan, you're a comedy fan, musical theater, shows, whatever you're into, they have got great deals on shows all over town. What's awesome about Game Time is they kind of incentivize you to live in the moment. So many times people will not go to something because, I don't have tickets. It's going to cost a bunch last minute. Now with Game Time, they're saying live it up, make that last minute decision, go out tonight, have a good time, catch a game, catch a show, do what you're into, and do it affordably. They've got great deals on everything. I mean, they've got all kinds of different deals, which is cool. They've got flash deals. They've got zone deals. If you can find tickets for cheaper, they'll give you up to 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying any tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we're going to play an interview here with freshman wide receiver Jordan Ross, 4-star recruit that signed with the Rams, and Vince Brown, 2-time national champion at the College of DuPage. I think he is going to factor in a major way in the offense, and it's been really great to see him step up because I think Jackson Warren's going to be a stud. He's every bit of 6'8", and he's a beast out there. But if you can throw the Twin Towers out there, I mean, the options it gives you up the seam, the ability to run some 12 personnel and really lean on that size, especially if you are going to run the ball with more consistency. It just gives you a lot of options, and it gives you a little bit more, how do coaches say it? It gives you the opportunity to be multiple, which is what you're hoping to do. Here is that interview with Vince Brown and Jordan Ross, kind of all over the place, but I wasn't going to be able to do it unless I did them together. I think you guys are going to enjoy it, and I appreciate them giving us some time.
I want to just carry that into the season, so I'll be just like him.
I mean, one of the cool things about the system is there's opportunities for so many different pass catchers to thrive. Like, I think if things are going right, you guys are going to have 6-7 dudes with like 40-plus catches.
Right.
But did it put a chip on your shoulder? I mean, they bring in Jackson Warren, obviously, you hear like, oh, he's so big, he's so athletic. Like, I imagine that had to be like, all right, well, I'll show you what I can do.
Yeah, for sure. It, when I first got the news that Jackson was coming in, it definitely did put like another chip on my shoulder, but other than that, he's still like a great help to the team. It's nothing, no bad and no omens or bad energy towards him, but it's still like that's still my teammate at the end of the day. But it definitely did put another chip on my shoulder. Okay, like now I have to work 10 times hard because he's a great athlete too, so I gotta just work even harder. How do you feel like camp's gone for you? I mean, you had a touchdown last week. You're running with the ones right now. Like, it seems like you've really turned a corner here in this offense. I feel like I've had a great camp in my eyes. I've been just really dialing in on the run game. And then, because the pass game can come easy to anybody. It's really the run game that's really what we're harping on this summer, so we can put those games away that we're all ahead. So I really want to harp on my run game. I'm pretty sure I've done it pretty good, and the coaches have said that too. That I've done great this camp. Jay was raving about you when you came in. Yeah, so basically now camp's almost over. I just want to finish strong and just put the cherry on top for this fall camp, basically. What about you, Jordan? I mean, I was talking to Jay out in Vegas about a month ago, and he's talking Armani Winfield, Torrey Horton. Everybody knows those names, but he made a point to say, Jordan Ross, freshman, came in, he's turning heads. I think this is going to be the last time I'll ever have to remind you guys of his name. Right. What does that mean to you, and how have things gone for you these first couple weeks?
It just makes me stand out more. So it just makes me feel like, okay, he trusted me. He put his trust in me. So I have to hold that, take that, and I have to do my part now. And my part is going out there playing and going to that high standard he's holding me to. So I just feel like camp right now is going great. I'm still learning, adjusting to things coming out of high school, but I feel like it's going great, and I'm getting there. I'm starting to learn everything, getting to the habits of everything.
How fun was it for you guys today? I mean, it's not necessarily all live reps, but just getting to go out there and play close to true 11-on-11 football for a little bit. It's always fun, because sometimes you can get away from that in summer camp practices because we're not going full speed. So it definitely helps, going full speed, tackling and stuff, so we can not forget what the true sport of football is here and there. You had a big catch today. What's going through your mind?
Honestly, I just got to go back to the old Jordan Ross I was. When I came into college, I was kind of tense and nervous. How do I adjust to certain things? But once I touched that field, it's a different Jordan Ross.
You had a lot of attention in the whole recruitment process. Does that put more pressure on you coming in, or?
No, I just learned how to stay calm through all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I just stayed calm. I chose what was closer to my heart. I had God with me the whole time, so I just took God's answer. and this is where I am.
From your guys' perspective, like obviously there's a lot of attention on Torrey Horton. He had a great couple of years now. Like, how good is that guy?
That's it.
That's not even a word.
Yeah,
Y'all
like,
know how good.
To me, like that's the best athlete, like football athlete I've ever seen, like in person. Like you see athletes on TV, but in person, he's definitely
so different.
Different. And then from me as a younger dude, learning and seeing how he actually does his stuff just makes me look. It's like he's an older guy than me, so I just look up to him. Right. And however he runs his stuff is just something I'm gonna follow and try to be as great as him.
How big is it from like a culture and like setting the standard when a guy like that who has all this athleticism and talent is also like one of the hardest workers, is constantly holding people accountable? Like, I mean, CSU's had a lot of great receivers over the years. I'll be honest, not all of them were necessarily great teammates.
Right.
I think it's got to be helpful from like like when the hardest working guy on the team is also one of the talented guys. Like, I think it helps like keep everybody together.
It does. It does. I think that's just the leader pointer.
Yeah.
That's really just the leader pointer.
Also, it just shows that if you work hard, you could be just like him. Like he was like, Torrey wasn't born like that. He put in a lot of work just to be that dude, and it helps the younger guys to see like, okay, if I put the work in like he did, I could be just like him. At CSU.
Right. What are you guys seeing out of Braden? I mean, he's a guy, like, he can run hot, obviously, sometimes, but, like, what are you seeing from him from a leadership standpoint?
Attitude.
Braden has definitely stepped up since last year, being a vocal leader when it comes to the offense, in a huddle on the sideline, make sure the whole offense is on the same page, but he's definitely has stepped up.
Does he, like, I don't know, to me, like, it seems like he has almost, like, kind of like a, swagger sounds corny, but like he has kind of something like to him that like people kind of buy into that. I don't know if that like, and I'm not saying that to say like Clay was bad, or I feel like he came in and he had an energy that people bought into that was different. Yeah, that's good. Honestly, for me, I think a quarterback should have that. That's where you walk on the field like that's your field, it's your offense, like you're gonna run the show. Like I feel like having that swagger is good for a quarterback, because then once he's on the field, then all right, now it's go time. Now it's time to go score a touchdown.
He's the voice of the offense.
Right.
Literally. He has the controlling over the plays, who he throws to, and so forth. And that's just being a vocal leader as well.
How good can this offense be? I mean, ones came out, went right down the. I mean, I know check to the go route to Torrey right off the bat, but then even like the 2-minute drill, you guys go right down the offense and score. Like it seems like you guys are really clicking. Yeah, and that's just off everybody just like I said before, like having that year under everybody's belt. So I feel like the sky's the limit. I feel like we could put up 38 points, 40 points a game if we're all dialed in, clicked, like all on the same page. Like I feel like we're gonna be really, really good this year. Just like Vince said, it's really just our energy and attitude. Mm-hmm. If we have the energy throughout this whole season, man, who knows what CSU's surprises we got. And the last thing I just want to ask you guys, just like individually, do you have some markers you're trying to hit? Like what would constitute a successful season to each of you? I'd just say just winning games at the end of the day, like coming in every day, just doing just contributing to W's, so we get win as a team, make a bowl game, make it to the Mountain Championship, make it to the college football playoff. Like that's the biggest thing. Like I want a ring. I got 2 rings in junior college, so I want a ring here before I leave. So anything that makes the team win is something I want to do.
And I got 3 individual and I got 2 main team ones. The 3 individuals is to make myself proud, to be a better me, to make God proud, because he put me on this platform. I wouldn't be here without him. And to make my family proud. That's my 3 individuals. But the 2 main ones for the team is to give energy back that they give, to match their energy, to come out here and do what I could do for them to be my best. Because it's not me being selfish. I'm here for the team. Yeah. And it's not just me, it's a team sport, so I'm here for them too as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Big shout out to Jordan Ross, to Vince Brown.
Man, Vince looks so huge.
They got size, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's what's going to be really interesting with this tight end room this year. They've got 3 tight ends that are all 6'5" and above. I actually meant to play this other clip of Mason Muau earlier, if we can play that 3rd clip. It is Mason Muau, sophomore tight end, absolutely mossing Chris Jackson.
Okay. Yeah, they've got some size at tight end.
They got some big boys. It was a rough day for Jackson at corner. He got beat by Torrey on the go route as well. He'll probably be in the mix as one of the number 2 or number 3 corners. But what I loved from that interview, one, those guys were really gracious with us, answered every question we had, were really humble. But you can just tell that there's a belief that this year is going to be different within that locker room. I think it's one thing to say it, but body language and the way that guys react, just the energy in the building is so much more telling than what is actually being said. I think it's an exciting chance.
Also, we forget coming into this season last year, there were so many more unknowns.
A ton.
And you were just lacking the kind of foundation that you are building upon this year. The improvements that were made last season, despite some definite moments of frustration, despite some definite games that were left on the table and probably there for the taking, despite us still talking about, didn't feel like that was the identity yet. There's still you could see some of the losing ways still creeping up because that's where the program's been for a minute. I think this year, and Vince talked about that early on, right? They're kind of learning on that and turning a page.
Well, and that's what's huge about when you bring the foundation of what you've built back, when you don't have to reset at quarterback, when you don't have to lose your generational receiver, and then you add on to the talent that you have there anyways, when you bring back the majority of your starting O-line, it allows you to be so much more competent at this time of year. And it allows you to be able to lock in on who are some of these other pieces going to be. What BFN's going to do. Torrey is a given. Armani Winfield's the real deal at this point. I didn't include him in my breakout candidates because to me, that's just a foregone conclusion. He's going to be a stud. But I do have some breakout candidates to get into, and starting with Vince Brown, who we just heard from. Yeah. I would say he has been the biggest winner of training camp for CSU so far. I mean, going back to the spring, Jay, on this show and every interview we've had, we've heard so much about Jackson Warren. And Jackson looks the part, seeing him, but he's also a converted quarterback that's played tight end for less than a calendar year.
Right.
I thought it was very telling that Vince has put himself in a spot where at least here at the beginning of the year, it looks like he's going to run with the ones. And I think they'll work Warren in, and there's going to be plenty of times where you just, it's like the red zone. We're just going to throw it up to him. He's 6'8". Yeah. Screw it. Jackson's down there somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it's really encouraging, though, that instead of turtling and just being I thought this was going to be my chance after Dallin Holker, but they brought in this other dude, whatever, I guess I'll get my degree and I'll get out of here. Vince kind of came in with a chip on his shoulder, and I think it's brought the best out of him.
Yeah, and also it seems like they've got a bit more versatility and size. I know he's had some big plays at junior college, and you're gambling on that size and kind of athleticism, right? The ability to break some big ones. But from what I was reading about him, he was a special teams contributor. He talked about winning a couple championships and the importance of that. Is he more of a well-rounded tight end who could be an asset even as a second tight end to be more of a blocker?
I think all of these guys inherently catching the ball is what they're going to do best. I don't think he'll be a liability out there, though. I think the experience he gained last year, particularly on special teams, will be good for some of that hand-to-hand engagement type stuff.
And in this offense, you like receiving tight ends, right? Because sometimes you can be in 12 personnel, but it's really disguised as big 11 personnel,
Well, and it's also not going to be like Adazio, where you're not going to have to go out there and block 8 straight reps, but can you seal the edge so that Marshall can get to the corner on one of these plays? Can you be competent out there?
Totally.
And if you can, with what you have at receiver, the talent you have in the backfield, it just, like you said, going back to what you said earlier with the versatility, it just opens up things. It might not be necessarily a 12 personnel from the sense of old school, 5 yards in a cloud of dust, any of that type of stuff. But just the ability to have those guys out, especially when you're going tempo, and the fact that you can flex them out wide and have them run up the seam or bring them in. I love the versatility. I'm really excited to see what happens with Vince Brown. Another guy that's had a really encouraging camp, I would say, is sophomore wide receiver Caleb Goody. We did not have a chance to have him on, but I think him and Jordan Ross, you look at some of these young guys in the system, I think they're gonna factor into the equation a little bit. I am interested to see, when you look back at the 2019 Nevada offense, I think they had 6 guys with 40 or more catches. I think that's very realistic this year for CSU.
I mean, there will be some opportunities outside of the top two guys. And, I mean, even Jordan Ross, right? Who knows what he could do? And you were talking about your candidate for the slot is a
Goffney, I think,
right?
will likely factor in there a lot. But, I mean...
Now you've got Goody as one of your breakouts. Like, yeah, it's going to be a lot of competition. It's going to be a lot of talent, and it's a system that really feeds that. I mean, there were points of this offseason where we thought, are we just going to be in a lot of 4 wide receiver sets, right? But it's why you're pleasantly surprised by some of the talent that's at tight end.
Yeah,
some of the size
I think
and some of the other
tight end
options.
room is in a lot better position than I would have anticipated coming in. I feel really good about the backfield. I think Kobe Johnson deciding to run it back with CSU instead of potentially transferring out again is huge. I had an opportunity to talk with him yesterday, and he was saying a lot of similar things that we heard from Vincent Brown and Jordan Ross. Just, no, like, I want to be a part of what allows this team to get over the hump. I think the system is going to give me an opportunity. Everybody focuses on the air raid, and they think it's going to be throw the ball 60 times a game. Well, we know we got to run the ball with more consistency, and it just seems like guys are really hungry. And I think what should be exciting for all these guys is the opportunity is there. It's one thing to say, like, yeah, you know, we're going to get all these guys in the mix. But when you look at this offense, just inherently, it gives guys opportunities. You're spreading the ball around. If you're out there doing your job, you are going to get an opportunity in one way or another.
100%. It's set up to be really talented room here, man, and feed into that system. And we've talked about that Jay Norvell offense. Like, he has some very air raidy influences, and that's where it all starts. But it is different. Like, even from his roots,
it was never like a Leach style air raid.
Right,
like
exactly.
They ran the ball at OU, you know,
100%.
And I think they realized that, like, we kind of have to go back to our roots a little bit in that. You know, we love what this offense can be, and I think inherently it allows you to land some skill players that you wouldn't run if you were running a different type of offense. But at the end of the day, you want to win. Like, CSU's been wide receiver U for 10 years, and it's resulted in very little actual team success.
It's true.
This is the year where they got to turn around. Couple of breakout candidates, and then we're going to get into our quarterback rankings. I had Dre do some of his homework. I'm excited for you guys to hear all of this. I'll just throw out a couple guys on the D-line. Kennedy McDowell, we saw him a little bit last year, got hurt in that Boise State game. Obviously, that was actually kind of a scary situation, left in an ambulance, but he's having a really good camp. He is so quick off the edge. I think he's got some room to grow. You know, he's still got to grow into his body a little bit and before I see him as like a 3-down type defensive end. But I think especially in pass rush situations, he's so quick off the snap. Like, you just find ways to get him out there. And they brought over a lot of depth in the interior. They brought over 3 transfer defensive tackles. All of them are going to play into the mix. Will Prendergast from FIU's look good. But the guy that stood out to me yesterday was Jernias Tafia, who came over from Washington State. He's one of those, like, bowling ball types, but just all muscle. Like, doesn't look... It's like, you play in the interior... It's like, yeah, I guess you are 300 pounds, huh? And then you look at him and it's all muscle. He looks like a wrestler or something.
Yeah, those guys. I mean, they kind of added a few of those type of guys. They've just beefed up on the interior. And I mean, who knows? Too early to say, but maybe it's a Winfield-like situation where
you upgraded a little bit.
Yeah, in a roundabout way, you were able to upgrade in the end.
I think...
But there's going to be a lot of
Grady Kelly was a tough loss, but I think by adding all 3 of these guys, I think you have a better rotation. I think you're going to be less dependent on essentially Grady Kelly and Cam Baratow to do everything for you. So
totally. I enjoyed our breakdowns earlier in the offseason when they were adding those guys. I was pretty impressed.
Go check all those out if you happen to miss them. Shout out to everybody in the Toyota chat. I appreciate you. I also appreciate Premier Members Credit Union. They're not a bank. They do things a little bit differently. They put their members first with high interest saving rates and lower loan rates. This is an organization that serves the community and the Colorado community in particular. You're going to get local branches, friendly tellers. Most importantly, though, you're going to get the tools you need to save smarter, like their new high yield savings account. You can earn 5% APY on your first $2,000 with their reverse tier money market. Whatever you need, PMCU is all about creating a better banking experience for the Colorado community. When you become a new member at PMCU, you'll get $200. You just have to open a checking account and sign up for e-statements. Boom. Easiest $200 you've ever made.
Well done.
This will be your best money move yet. Head to becomepremier.com to find out more.
Even the sound effects. Boom. Well done. And some exciting events. It's event season, baby.
It's
where it
always
all goes
event
down.
season at DNVR. But
It really
we've got
is.
the tailgate coming up on Sunday. That starts 3 o'clock. We're over in the Sports Fan parking lot over there
Yes.
off of 17th and Federal, I believe that is. It's awesome.
18th, yes.
18th and
I
Federal.
mean, you're right there, though,
Yeah.
right? Like 17th on one side, 18th on the other, you pick. So I shouldn't even have corrected you. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I want the people to get it right. I want it to be easy for you, but it really is a blast. Come through, have as much to eat as you can. I think we got snarfs there this year. Every year, the food option is just better than the
We'll have
last.
some rotating stuff, some Breck brews, some illegal Pete's.
Some
It's gonna
coolers.
be
I mean,
awesome.
it's just going to be the best time
Season
ever.
pass is now available for that. DNVR.com/events for all information on that. You can even get a party bus and go to the tailgates. Our tailgates are truly awesome. We could not wait to get those going. So we started it off with this Broncos preseason, and you can get in on the fun all season long.
Boom. See you there. Come have a brew with me. Let's talk some football. All right. Before we get out of here, I wanted to use Dre's expertise. I have been ranting all day. I'm in solo mode still. It's great to have Dre back. But this is where he gets to shine. We're going to rank the opposing quarterbacks that CSU will play this season. A little bit of a disclaimer here. There are technically still some open position battles. We went with what we just assume will be who is going to end up winning the job, but not necessarily a foregone conclusion, especially, some of these situations like Oregon State. You've got 3 guys in the mix. We don't play till game 5, week 6 of the college football season. It could be somebody else under center by the time that game happens. But I wanted to give you guys an idea of the level of talent that your CSU is going to be going up against under center. Should we start at 1 or do you want to start at the bottom?
Let's start at 1. Yeah, and a fantastic exercise to really give me an idea. I mean, what a great Mountain West schedule for the Rams. Quarterbacking wise, you are not getting the best of the best from the conference.
I mean, it's just really favorable.
Sets up nicely, man.
Getting to avoid Boise obviously was huge. The schedule in general is just very favorable for CSU. You've got 8 first-year coaches, 7 home games.
Totally.
There's so much about it that gets us to the conclusion that
not
this
very established quarterbacks as well.
that too. And that's why, while it's kind of a scary position to be in, having not had a ton of success these last couple of years, I feel pretty confidently like this has got to be a different year for this program with the talent that you have, with the way that the schedule lines up. Like, there are just so many factors in play that, at least on paper, are really in a good spot for you.
1,000%. 1,000%.
I assume number 1 is Shedeur Sanders.
Well, you phrased this to me as most challenging to game plan for. So I was really torn between Ewers and Sanders because Ewers, he's got a rocket like no one else in college football. And he can turn a game around with 2 throws. I mean, what they did against Bama last year was no joke. It's the only double-digit loss at home Saban had his entire tenure with the Tide.
That's great in the playoff.
Yeah.
Some big throws.
He had some big throws. And even that Wyoming game, which was close for 3 quarters, we think like, oh, our Wyoming to cover pick was great because it's a letdown. And then again, 2 throws, you can just change it on a dime, right? So he really stresses your defense because it's like a great 3-point shooter. The spacing that the threat of that arm brings, very challenging to game plan for. Very challenging. Shedeur Sanders, it's more accuracy to all levels and wanting to hang tough and having that cerebral IQ to, when your defense messes up, when your secondary has that, to hit it, right? And he's going to, that's a concern every game because you got to be, or every play, you got to be on point all game long. I was back and forth. Shedeur, I think, is a more complete quarterback as of now. I mean, it's early in the season where you faced both of those. So give me Shedeur number 1 and Quinn Ewers number 2, the Texas quarterback, in a tier of their own.
Yeah.
As far as guys the Rams are going against.
Let me ask you it this way. Who do you need to see more change from this year? Like, who needs to do more to elevate their status, in your opinion? Because Ewers is a guy who's been in the spotlight for a long time, going back to the Elite 11s, like basically the first NIL player we had.
In some ways, yes.
Back in high school.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need? Like, what do you need to see from him from a growth standpoint? And then the same with Shedeur, and who has more to do?
I think Ewers. It's a great question because more to do is interesting. I honestly, it was a really interesting exercise to do because in some ways I see them very similarly, right? Even though their profiles aren't necessarily exactly the same.
I mean, they're kind of like prototypical. You're going to be in the pocket, rip the ball downfield.
That's right.
Can make all the intermediate throws.
Yep.
Can move around a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't say either of them are statues, but that's not their strength.
But it's more a handcuff in the pocket thing, right? And yeah, they can both beat you to all fields. You're exactly right. And one's beating you more with his mind, the other's probably more with his arm. Gosh, it's a great question. I think the things he needs to clean up on field, Ewers probably has a few more things to refine. Just his feel in the pocket, his consistency, being consistently accurate, his lower body mechanics, that kind of stuff. Shedeur needs to do a little more team success to kind of clean up that draft profile, right? He needs to win more games, needs to some of those bad habits that were creeping up, especially later in the season, holding on to the ball too long, stuff like that. That needs to, get back to kind of being where it was earlier in the season. So yeah, it's a tricky question.
What's a bigger handicap? Texas being down its top two running backs, or Shedeur Sanders being strapped with Pat Shurmur? Look, wow. And I'm making jokes. I actually think Pat Shurmur, as a NFL background, like a more traditional pro style offense, I understand what CU is thinking there. I think it caters to what Shedeur's skill set is. I get all that. But also, I'm a Broncos season ticket holder, and I was there in person for those Shurmur games. And if you're looking me in the eyes and saying, this is the guy that's going to be the savior of the program, I would be skeptical at best.
It's going to be an interesting fit. There's not a ton of track record.
Oh, I'm very interested to see how it plays out. I mean, it was one of those. I mean, the offense, in my opinion, took a step back, at least in terms of production, when they made the change last year, when they let go of Sean Lewis, who's obviously not San Diego State. I get why, too, just with the way that Shedeur's taken a beating. Like, I think they wanted to slow the game down a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of factors that went into that, but I am interested to see kind of how that OC equation factors into that.
There's a lot of moving parts there.
Who is number 3 to you?
3. So top 2 in a tier of their own. Next tier in a tier of their own as well. You have the 2 best Mountain West quarterbacks on the schedule. Many would say Mikey Keene from Fresno State. I've kind of become a bit of a Fresno State hater, and I will go with the upset and give me Devin Dampier, the New Mexico quarterback. Now, both move well. Dampier, more of a runner, though.
UNM hanging on to Dampier was a big win.
I thought so, too.
Because he's intriguing.
He really is, especially as a runner. If you just look at the raw passing stats, you might fall a bit more in love. Those are highly inflated by the end of game stats he has. The 2 games where he threw for more than 10 attempts were not great and were kind of blowout losses. So still a lot to the... If I was doing like my transfer portal rankings, I think I would have him rated a little higher than Mike Keene.
Interesting.
Or Mikey?
Mikey Keene. He goes by Mikey.
That's fine.
I assume Mike's his name.
I respect it. And Mikey's shown himself to be a very good college quarterback as well. Accurate, can up the RPMs and squeeze it in tight windows, especially over the middle of the field. He just doesn't have that same running threat. And, he looks like Jay Kaner. I don't think he's quite Jay Kaner.
I like it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Mikey Keene, the preseason all-conference quarterback, going below sophomore Devin Dampier. I voted BFN over Mikey Keene. I like his arm better. I think he's more athletic, top to bottom.
Yeah, he has the upside of a Dampier while being bigger than both Keene or Dampier. And he has the proven track record of a Keene. It really made me appreciate where Braden's at, like against the rest of the conference.
I like it, though. I like being bold, and I like leaning into what you're watching.
And again, it's challenging to prepare for, right? So Dampier, I do think, presents a few more challenges when you're game planning and prepping for the Lobos.
Especially if they can run some RPO type stuff, be quick.
Exactly.
I'm very interested to see what Brocco Mendenhall can do. They've got some athleticism in that team. That O-line's in a rough spot. That's going to be a total rebuild in Albuquerque. I wonder how much that holds the offense back.
I know. I mean, they
receiver
lost a lot.
talent, it's pretty thin. I mean, they got Wysong back, who's a nice little slot dude. But I mean, if your best receiver is like a 5'10" white dude, it's just that's a tough.
Wow.
It's tough sledding. That's all I'm saying.
Harsh, Justin.
Some stereotypes are true.
You've been in offices with recruiting officials for too long, I think. Methinks. So yeah, give me Mikey Keene at 4, Tiff. And then
this is where it gets real interesting. Like outside of like
we're already in the third
it falls
tier.
off a cliff.
It's like well, now we're really throwing stuff at the wall because Oregon State has a wide open battle. I think the returning guys aren't super intriguing. But I do think Giovanni McCoy
from Idaho.
My phone when I was typing Giovanni was just on. Was like, wait,
is this a
you
word?
You do not spell Giovanni this way, you know. He's an Idaho Vandal, so you love that. Go Vandals! Great program, great mascot. But I mean,
great
won
dome.
the Jerry Rice Award and showed some real flashes. Has some size. And could really sling it from within the pocket. Like kind of a guy who's going to grip it and rip it. You wonder if they're going a bit away from their identity the last few years where they were more of a ground and pound team, you know?
I think you have to open it up with what you... I mean, losing Martinez was such a rough blow, and I mean, they lose a lot of the O-line. Like, stylistically, I think it's going to be a lot different. I think it would have to be.
Totally. And I mean, look, you don't even know if he's going to be the starter, but he's the starter that intrigues me the most. So
he's who I would put my money on in the preseason. I mean, threw for like 2,000 plus yards at Idaho.
Again, if I was creating my portal rankings, he'd by far be the one I was most intrigued by. So there you go. But it's already falling off a cliff where we're going with intriguing transfers. Speaking of intriguing transfers, at 6, give me Spencer Petras, the former Iowa quarterback in that Utah State offense. I mean, everything at Utah State after the weird change at head coach is kind of an unknown. But I think in that offense that gave... I don't want to bring it up, but that second half still has me scarred. I think a guy like that in a new system... keeping you on time, getting the ball out, you know, could still have some success, could do his thing. And frankly, I'm kind of intrigued by Bryson Barnes, the Utah transfer as well, giving him a bit more of a change up and different element.
It's the island of misfit toys in Logan. They brought in the former Boise State backup. They bring over Barnes, the Utah backup. They bring over Petras, who lost the job at Iowa.
Yeah.
With, was it McNamara coming over?
Yeah, right.
Or the Michigan kid.
Right, and he kind of was injured last year, so they were a little better under Petras, right? But yeah, that does tell you a bit of a downgrade there.
It helps that you got Jalen Royals at receiver. He's a guy that had like 15 touchdowns a year ago, potential All-American candidate. Right. Assuming he sticks around. I mean, that's what's going to be weird with Utah State is, especially if, and I'm not trying to like predict this will happen. I'm not rooting for it to happen, but we saw what happened with CSU in year 1 under Norvell. You have guys that were part of old regimes and they give it a shot. And then as soon as those losses start to pile up, guys kind of look around like, do I want to waste my eligibility on this year? So I'm really interested to see kind of how that first month goes for Utah State. I think that kind of dictates how capable they're going to be. I mean, on paper, they're still a bowl team talent-wise. But there's just so many moving parts. It's such a weird spot. I am a little surprised that Evans Svoboda, the Wyoming quarterback, didn't make it into the top half. Big arm, kind of a Josh Allen type.
More of a runner right now.
Definitely more of a runner.
The offensive systems did factor into this. So I think Petras in that Utah State system.
Much more versatile.
Right. Like, that scares me more. That presents more challenges to me if I'm game planning. And I'm going to say the same about John Busha. There's some unknown there. So, no, the Air Force.
Air Force. Yeah.
At 8 or at 7, the Air Force QB, it's that system. They're always tough to prepare for.
He's got a little bit of experience, too. Went in last year 4 or 5 games when they were having injuries.
Might he be more of a passer than we've had in the past? I know this has kind of been the narrative the last 4 years. Like, and don't tell your friends, but this Air Force QB might be more of a passer. And then it's just like same old mostly, but
he has the ability. Like, there were times last year where they went down and you saw him, he had to drop back and throw it a little bit. He's able to move the ball downfield. I mean, the system is always going to favor the ground game in Air Force, and it should.
Totally, man. They suck to prepare for.
But it's not the like true triple option of like the 80s and 90s that a lot of people grew up with. It is a little bit of a hybrid. Like, they've added some pro style concepts to it. They are willing to drop back and spread it out a little bit.
True that.
Air Force is really interesting to me because just based on pedigree and Troy Calhoun, I could see them being a top 3 team. I think Phil Steele had them finishing second. They've also had so much turnover and roster change these last couple of years that I think at some point it has to catch up to them. So I'm kind of fading Air Force this year, knowing that there's a chance that I come around in November and look at myself like, why would you ever doubt Calhoun?
I know. That's exactly right. And then let's get Svoboda some love at number 8, the Wyoming quarterback. There's some upside for sure. Undeniably more upside than even a Petras, probably. But
what's the floor, though?
What exactly? Such an unknown, man.
Well, and
such an unknown.
Wyoming is claiming that they're going to open it up more. They're going to throw the ball. They're going to have to because Harrison Whaley's got a knee injury. He's going to be out early on in the season. But also, I'm not saying he's Sean Chambers, who a couple years ago basically was just like, we're going to do QB power and QB off tack just consistently, like right up the gut. Can he consistently make the intermediate throws? We'll see. Like, I know he can stretch the field. I know he can throw the ball 70 yards. Can you beat me when it's 3rd and 11, though? Can you beat me on 3rd and 6 even?
Man.
And that's what's interesting to me about Wyoming. Their defense is going to be great. They're going to be competitive. I also feel like offensively it's still going to be pretty like limited. And because of that, you're like a 7-win team, tops. I mean, if that, right. And I mean, yeah, I got to see it. Like, we're going off of a couple glimpses on a few bad, like I mean, he looked good in the bowl game. Like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
like, came in,
totally.
But also I'm to the point now where I take all results from a bowl game with a grain of salt, and they matter to me probably less even than practice does at this point. Yeah. So it's a weird spot. Let's round it out here.
At 9, Nevada's Brendan Lewis. I mean, it's like Todd Centeio. Like, I've seen him before.
You know what you have and you know what you don't have in Brendan Lewis. And what you don't have is a consistently competent quarterback that can throw the ball to move the sticks.
Totally.
But he's a good athlete. He plays hard. They played hard in Fort Collins. I'll give Nevada that. But
yeah, I mean, this is, again, another tier below like Busha and Svoboda. Okay, there might be some upside, might be some intrigue. It's kind of over after that. And then Emmett Brown, the Wazoo transfer, who's starting for San Jose. Maybe. That's another open competition. We shall see. Even his high school stats don't jump out at me. UTEP, we'll see. It's an open battle. Cade McConnell is kind of the returning starter.
Yeah,
right?
He took over when their starter last year got hurt. He's probably the front runner. They did bring in this transfer from Austin P. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Yes,
Locklear, I think his last name is.
Yep. Stephen Locklear.
Yeah, Stephen Locklear. Skyler Locklear. There we go. We got it together.
We know ball, man. And then, Peter Costelli, the one guy truly wasn't able to get anything the UNC starter. We shall see. But
I think I talk about Northern Colorado football more than any outside of Brady Hole, who's in Greeley. I'm probably like the second biggest UNC Bears source in the entire state, and I talk about them maybe once a month. So it's a tough spot in Greeley. It's
really tough spot.
We'll see what happens there. That's a game you definitely need to win big and kind of set the tone. Before we get out of here, and we are about to get out of here, I've had some comments early on in the Toyota chat asking about alternate uniforms in the NCAA video game. They will be out soon, guys. We're getting slightly updated alternates in real life. They're not going to come out until they get released in real life. I don't know if they're going to both be in before the season or if it won't be until like those weeks in the season, but they will be in soon enough. I appreciate everybody who's been locked in with us. I have all kinds of content coming out. I'm working on an Armani Winfield written piece right now. I'm going to have a ton of written pieces coming out over the next couple of days as I finally get caught up from vacation and all that. Shout out to Dre for doing his homework. Make sure you guys are following him. He's
Shout out to you.
the expert on all things football. He's the football czar in the DNVR sphere. Shout out to Tiff behind the sticks, making all this work so smoothly, showing those clips, showing the interview. Honestly, without the work on the production side, it would just be my ugly mug up here for 45 straight minutes, and nobody wants that. Much love to all you guys, especially everybody in the Toyota chat that's locked in with us. We are always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.